In the speaking section of the TOEFL, there are 4 types of questions that you will have to handle carefully. But the speaking task type 2, which is the first of so-called integrated speaking questions, it's called integrated in the first place because you will have to not just react to a prompt and start speaking. You'll have to integrate your ability to speak with your ability to read and listen in English. First, you will have to read an announcement or a notice of some sort. Usually, the content of these notices or announcements will be related with the campus life, some aspect of coordination related to subject matters, the courses, or perhaps something related to the use of facilities inside campus. After reading this announcement, you have to listen to a conversation, a dialogue between 2 parties. This may be to students, perhaps a student and an administrative staff in a campus, 2 people related, but normally one of them is a student, and they will be talking about the announcement you just read. As soon as you finish, you will have to prepare a response for a question you will be asked, something related to the conversation, but of course the conversation is related to the passage that you just read. So your response will have to summarize and connect logically the main and detailed points of both passages. How can you do that in the most efficient way? There are many suggestions, ideas on how to structure your response, but no matter what is the structure you decide to follow, so to speak, the template you decide to structure your response by, you have to realize that to excel in this type of question, everything starts in note-taking. Why? Okay, note-taking is very, very important because the average person doesn't have the ability to retain, but perhaps just less than 25% of what they listen to or read, unless you have this kind of photographic memory, right? Which allows you to retain for a long time new information you're exposed to. You will have to aid your memory by taking notes about the passage you first read, perhaps try to sketch a little outline with the main ideas and some kind of interesting details about it. You cannot anticipate what will be the content of the conversation, but by taking notes of the passage, this will help you focus your mind and your understanding and your retention on aspects of this passage, this announcement, that you will have to be thinking about when you listen to the conversation that follows. Obviously, at the time you are listening to the conversation, you will have to take notes as well. You may follow a number of strategies in order to take notes of the conversation in the most coherent and comprehensive way. One important thing is that you practice some kind of graphic representation of the 2 speakers in the conversation so that you can identify quickly who is saying what at every point in the conversation. Not only this, but you will have also to structure your notes somehow so that the different moments or rounds in the conversation, perhaps a series or sequence of sentences said by the speakers, which will revolve around an idea. And then this sequence starts again. Usually in a conversation, you identify 2 or 3 rounds. And it's important that you signal this graphically in your notes, because this is a way to understand the important moments in the conversation. Okay, if you can take notes of this structure in the conversation, but also you can make clear in your notes that you are collecting detailed information. The importance you give to details will be paramount at the time of preparing your response, because you may be required to give details in your answer, specific details that will demand retention of, for example, dates, specific names or terms that they used in the conversation, or locations, right? Or the name of people mentioned in the conversation. So it's important that you give attention to all those detailed facts, but also pay attention to the feelings of the people talking. There are questions which will demand for the attitude of the speakers, or the feelings or the stance. So it's very important that you make sure that you are gathering all the necessary information in written, right? But When a person speaks at a normal pace, okay, they may say about 125 words per minute. But when you write using your handwriting, you may perhaps just catch 25 words a minute. It's impossible to write faster. So this calls for a solution. You need to develop your own system of short writing. You cannot try to copy verbatim what the speakers are saying. Otherwise, you will get lost very soon. It's important that you develop a system in which you focus only on the very essential information in written that will help you remember. This includes, for example, identifying a number of abbreviations of common use that you may use when taking notes. It is also important that you take advantage of math symbols and logical symbols that express relationships. These are very commonplace and useful at the time of note taking. It's also important that you develop your own abbreviations. Sometimes a strategy could be writing or jotting down just the consonants of a long word. Get rid of all particles, such as the articles, prepositions, the verb to be, very unessential words that are not so important to catch meaning and to preserve the essential ideas. So there are a number of exercises. If you are not acquainted with a good system of note-taking, you will have to practice for that first. Once you have perfected your note-taking ability, then you may be able to work on the structure of the response. You have 30 seconds. Once you finish listening to the passage, to the conversation, they will present you with a specific question that, as I said before, it will normally require you to connect logically both texts, the conversation and the announcement. They will usually include specific details they want you to include in your response.